Hey everybody, if you're like me, you're trying to find a scale that won't make you second-guess every measurement, that fits on a cramped lab bench, and actually gives you the precision you need without draining your budget. That's the sweet spot we all hunt for: reliability, ease of daily use, and bang for the buck instead of a shiny spec sheet that looks good on paper but falls apart in the real world. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I know the hesitation that comes with buying a precision balance. You've probably read dozens of listings that brag about micrometer readability and 1,000-gram capacities, but the reality is you need something that stays calibrated, doesn't drift when you move it, and actually fits into your workflow. In my own research, I dug through a handful of forum threads, looked at the handful of user photos that show the ME403TE on lab benches, and compared the specs to a few competitors that sit in the same price bracket. The biggest risk is ending up with a balance that's either over-engineered for your needs or, worse, one that's too temperamental to keep humming day after day. So let's talk about the Mettler Toledo ME403TE. At first glance, the headline figures 420G maximum load and 1 mg readability put it in the high-precision category, which is exactly what you'd expect from a brand that's been a staple in labs for decades. What matters, though, is how those numbers translate when you're actually weighing a handful of reagents for a chemistry experiment or calibrating a set of standard solutions for a quality control routine. Who should buy this? If you're a small to medium research lab, a teaching facility, or even a serious hobbyist who needs to weigh powders, liquids, or small solid samples with confidence, the ME403TE fits nicely. Its 420G capacity covers most routine applications. Think of weighing a few milliliters of a dense liquid, a handful of catalyst powder, or a compact batch of tablets. The 1 mg readability is fine for anyone who needs to see changes at the subgram level without having to chase down a micron-level instrument that would cost double or triple the price. Who should skip it? If your work routinely pushes beyond 500G or requires sub-milligram precision, say you're doing forensic toxicology where 0.1 mg differences matter, you'll find the ME403TE's capacity and readability limiting. Likewise, if you need a balance that can survive a harsh industrial environment, vibrations from heavy machinery, frequent temperature swings, or exposure to solvents, you might look toward a more rugged, sealed model. The ME403TE is built for a typical lab setting, not a floor-standing production line. Now, let's break down the practical strengths. First, the unit is genuinely reliable for day-to-day weigh-ins. Users have reported that the balance stays calibrated for weeks when left on a stable bench, which means you won't be spending hours rezeroing it after each use. That's a real time saver when you have a tight schedule of experiments. Second, the display is clear and the controls are straightforward: a single button to tare, a quick press mode to switch between grams and milligrams, and a backlit screen that remains readable even under the low light conditions typical of many labs. Third, the footprint is compact. It sits comfortably in a 12-inch wide workspace, leaving room for your pipettes, sample trays, and the occasional beaker without feeling cramped. For anyone who has ever tried to jam a bulky analytical balance into a crowded bench, that space efficiency alone feels like a win. On the flip side, there are a few practical weaknesses that show up once you start using the device. The first is the lack of an internal draft shield. While many precision balances come with a built-in enclosure to protect the weighing pan from air currents, the ME403TE relies on an external draft shield that you have to purchase separately. This isn't a huge cost, but it does add an extra step if you need the utmost accuracy for volatile substances. Secondly, the maximum load of 420G, while sufficient for most chemistry labs, does mean you have to split heavier batches into multiple weigh-ins, which can introduce cumulative error if you're not careful. Finally, the balance isn't battery-operated. It needs to be plugged into a stable AC source, so you'll need a nearby outlet or a dedicated power strip. In a cramped bench where outlets are already at a premium, that can be a small inconvenience. A real-world scenario that highlights these points is a typical undergraduate organic chemistry lab. Students often need to weigh out a few grams of a reagent, then transfer it to a reaction flask. With the ME403TE, they can quickly tear the whey boat, add the solid, and see a stable reading within a couple of seconds. The readability of 1 mg lets them confirm they've added the correct amount without second-guessing the last decimal place. Because the balance holds its calibration well, the lab instructor doesn't need to recalibrate after every student, which speeds up the whole lab period. On the downside, if the class decides to run a large-scale synthesis that requires 600 g of a starting material, they'll need